How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Lead Therapy, and thank you so very much for taking time for tuning into my video. Gun control activists want Glocks reclassified as machine guns. Not just Glocks, actually. The Violence Policy Center's Kristen and a lot of other gun control activists want the ATF to broadly reclassify semi-automatic firearms as machine guns. And it's an idea that will likely gain more traction in the gun control lobby if Republicans take back one or both chambers of Congress in the midterms, with no chance of new gun control laws passing on Capitol Hill, and the Supreme Court likely to undo some of the existing infringements already on the books. The White House and the executive branch agencies are going to be one of the only places where groups like the VCP expect to find any traction, and they're aiming big. Rand's argument, one that the gun group Brady has also made in a recent lawsuit, is that many models of semi-automatic firearms are readily converted into machine guns, which would subject to them and their owners to provisions of the National Firearms Act. As evidence, Rand and others point to the increase in the number of firearms recovered by police that have been illegally adapted by autoseers, or switches that enable the guns to fire continuously. The Chicago Sun-Times reports that last year, police in the city recovered more than 300 firearms that had been illegally modified to full auto, and lays out the detailed struggles that law enforcement have to trying to combat their growing popularity among the city's criminal class. The switches are small and easily available, both from online shippers who sent the switches from China and those that make their own with 3D printers, which is why Rand said the focus should be on the guns themselves. In July, Democrats in the U.S. Senate introduced a bill to establish a coordinated national strategy to prevent or intercept the importation and trafficking of automatic gun conversion devices. Gun violence is an epidemic, and lawmakers must do all we can to combat this horrific threat, including by stopping the flow of illegal gun modification devices into our society, said U.S. Senator Gary Peters, a Democrat from Michigan, a lead sponsor. With switches, though, the effort might be too late, says Kristen, Government Affairs Director of the nonprofit Violence Policy Center, which advocates for gun control. She says concentrating on the devices is probably a lost cause. The focus should be on why so many firearms are so easily converted to full auto, noting that Glocks and other guns can be easily modified. Manufacturers must bear some of the responsibility to design their guns to be more resistant to conversion. From 2018 through September of this year, 643 of the 706 modified automatic weapons recovered by the Chicago police were Glock handguns, the records show. Rand said ATF should consider using its authority to reclassify certain types of firearms that are easily converted into fully automatic weapons. Other firearms besides Glocks are also readily convertible into machine guns by machining or adding a few parts, she said. She also said ATF should be looking at to classify some of these firearms as machine guns as they did in the 1980s with the KG-9, MAC-10, and the Sten. This is a classic example how the gun industry escapes responsibility for their problems of their own making. If concentrating on the switches is a lost cause, then so is the focusing on the gun. After all, we're talking about hundreds of millions of firearms that would fall under the type of reclassification Rand and other anti-gun activists would like to see from the ATF. But for Rand and other anti-gun activists, that's not a bug, but a feature. In fact, the more guns that are reclassified, the better. At best, vast majorities of the U.S. gun owners would have to register their guns with the federal government and pay a $200 per gun fee, or else become a criminal, subject to 10 years in federal prison for possession of an unregistered machine gun. At worst, the Biden administration and Attorney General Merrick Garland could argue, since the Hughes Amendment prohibits the registration of any machine gun made after 1986, tens of millions of Americans need to hand over legally purchased and lawfully owned pistols and rifles. Either one would be the most significant victory the gun control lobby has ever achieved, the one that would face an immediate court challenge. The Supreme Court has already declared that arms that are in common use are prima facie protected by the Second Amendment. Only those arms that are dangerous or unusual fall outside the Second Amendment protections. And it's hard to argue with a straight face that semi-automatic firearms aren't in common use. for a variety of lawful purposes. We have no idea what would happen if readily converted meets dangerous and unusual inside the court chambers. But if the gun control lobby gets its way, we're all going to find out soon enough. Kristen Rand from the Violence Policy Center sure is a gun-hating piece of crap, isn't she? But of course that's expected because of the place she works for. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this idea in Kristen Rand. And if you guys could do me an extremely large favor and help the channel out by liking, sharing, and subscribing and hitting those post notifications, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.